Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me again. How many shows is this, my friend?
Oh, this is 117th show.
Wow, 117. Well, as always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we always pray that all of you are doing as well as possible in this crazy world that we live in. And thank you for stopping by and listening in.
Absolutely.
And to drop a little one, we got our story for tonight is called Mink and His Uncle. So that'll be later.
Yep, exactly. And tonight we got a great show. Guess who we're going to be talking about? This guy right here, Buffalo Bill Cody. Yes, this is going to be an interesting one. And how do you say this? Now, we were doing Black Elk here. You know, Black Elk Speaks. This book here, if you get it, it's a great read. Check it out, people. Black Elk was a seer, and he last two shows, wasn't it? Last two shows.
Yep.
We've been talking about Black Elk and going through his life. Now, Black Elk was growing up on the plains. He hadn't even seen a white man, a Washishu, which means, you know what? So, and Washishu means the fact or something like that, which means that basically it boils down to greedy. Overindulging. And so,
yeah.
Yes. Hey, and there's Richard. Hey, there you go. Travis is here. Travis the architect. What's up, Paul? Okay, there you go. Thank you. Lucky Stone. He's listening and making some dinner. Good deal. A little late for dinner, though. Oh, but anyway, either way. So now Black Elk, he did a lot of things, and he's growing up. He goes to the Battle of the Little Bighorn. His cousin is Crazy Horse. He knows all the chiefs, etc., etc. Well, it's the end of the era. You know, after the big battle, most of the people are heading out for the reservations, which at that point in time they called the agencies. And so they're heading out for these agencies, and some of the big chiefs lived in some of these agencies, you know, so you kind of got to pick which one you want. Pine Ridge, you want to go to Red Cloud's agency over there, you want to go to this one or that one, you pick where you're going to go, and then you go to this agency or reservation, as we call them now, and you kind of hang out there, and that's where you live. You know, you can set your teepee up on the thousands of acres that the government has given to you, and then you wait for them to give you some beef or whatever and food. So basically, you're squatting there and waiting for the government to sustain you. Not a good thing. So what does Black Elk do? His next move, he's sitting on the res. He says, you know, I got a job offer. You know, there's this thing called the Wild West Show, Buffalo Bill's Wild West Show, and he needs people to go. And he's going to hire us to go there, and I got an opportunity to go. Should I go? And he says yes. So Black Elk goes ahead and he gets, you know, takes the job offer and joins Buffalo Bill's Wild West Show. Now, we're going to put a backstory on this whole thing with Buffalo Bill, because needless to say, Buffalo Bill played a pivotal role in the Indians' history, believe it or not. Well-known guy, you know, we're going to go through some of his stuff right now. And man, if I can present some of this stuff. Just give me a second, everybody.
And as much as he was a showman,
Oh yeah.
Buffalo Bill Cody, that is, he brought the Native American to the people.
Yes.
You know, so where people would only read about it in a newspaper article or in some of the little publications that they made, you know, stories of the Old West and stuff. So, you know, he brought the Old West to people, not,
Yes.
you know, not just in a writing or a reading or something, because they didn't have films back then.
Yeah. They didn't have films back then. Now we're gonna trod back. I mean, you're right. He brought the West, brought the Indians to the people, but there's way more than that. How did he get to bring the Indians and all this stuff? I mean, he didn't just show up one day and say, I got this great idea. I'm gonna make a Wild West show. It wasn't just that simple.
It never is.
Oh no, he had to do things to get to that spot. But he started out in life with how should I say? He had nothing. He actually was born in Iowa, of all places, believe it or not. He was born William Frederick Cody. He was born February 26th, 1846. Believe it. There you go. So he was born way back in the day. I mean, the gold rush to California hadn't even started yet. Things were going on at the Alamo. The country was just getting formed. This was a great time to be alive for excitement, I tell you. I mean, the Indians were still on the plains and wild. Remember, Black Elk was born right about the same time there. Although we don't know exactly when, but or do we? I can't remember when he was born. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna double check here. I remember
1860 something.
What?
1860 something.
Yeah, it was somewhere. No, it was in the early. It was in the 50s, and
okay.
I mean, yeah. Throughout the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it grew steadily. Okay, Black Elk did not follow. Okay, that's not it. He was working a song of the 1890. No, that's the beginning. I'm trying to find when he was actually born. He was because he's an Indian. They didn't keep track of the months and the days. Remember, he was born. Story of his life is good to tell. Two-legged shares. He was a tale of a great hunter, a warrior. Doesn't really say. 4 ribbons hanging there. Nope. I don't remember.
Well, he was young. He was a teenager at the Battle of the Little Bighorn.
Oh, okay. I was born in the moon of the popping trees, December, and on the Little Powder River in the winter, when the 4 crows were killed in 1863.
So it was the 1860s. Did you freeze?
Got too many. This stupid thing has been doing this lately. I don't know why it is. It darn stuff going on. The government. It's the government.
Government.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's the government. Anyway, let me put this together, and then I can flip my screen. I didn't have time. I got a lot of pictures, people, to show y'all. There's a lot of good stuff here. Oh my gosh, do I got good stuff? Lots of good stuff. Too much good stuff, I should say. And I don't know, hopefully we get through it all tonight in my hour here. But anyway, the point is Buffalo Bill, he started out somewhere just like any of the rest of them. And Black Elk was out there. Anyway, we're going to go to this Buffalo Bill on stage. No. And see, Buffalo Bill, he started out at a young age because it all started during the slavery thing. So what happened is his father, they moved to Kansas. And when they moved to Kansas, his father was against slavery, and he was preaching up there. He was standing on the soapbox, as they would call it, saying, hey, we're not going to do the slavery thing. I want this place to be just like Iowa, where I came from. And you know what that kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of, of all things, it reminds me of the California people who are coming from California, and they're going to other states, and then they're saying, hey, I want to make this state just like my state, which isn't the right thing to do, people. You don't want to make your state into that state, or you might as well just go back to your state. You know what I'm saying? And yep. So he's up there in Kansas, and where it's a southern state, and he's telling them we got to do away with slavery. It's bad. Well, somebody come up and knifed him. Not a good thing. And of course that injured his father, and his father died a few years later. About 4 years later, his father died. Well, at this point in time, little Buffalo Bill guy, or we'll just call him William for now, he hasn't earned the title of Buffalo Bill yet. And he's like 10 or 11 there. And
little Billy.
Yeah, and he needs to, families, they're broke, the father's dead. He's got a bunch of brothers and sisters, though. He's got a younger brother, and he's got a older brother. His older brother named Samuel. Now, I got this book, and I thought I started reading it last night, and I want to get into a little of this because it's, how we always talk about it's the people that or the people, you got to be born into it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to be president, you got to be related to somebody, because you're not going to get to be president, right?
Right.
Well, little do we know the genealogy of Buffalo Bill. So Buffalo Bill comes from Spain, believe it or not. Their family tree moved to Ireland, and he came from a line of kings. One of the first of the line of the son of Brighteon Starvanti and the crown king of Ireland, Anno Dominii, again in 320. Another of the line became king of Connaught, Anno Dominii in 701. The possessions of September were located in the present counties of Clare, Galloway, and Mayo. The names Connaught and Galloway, after the centuries, gradually contracted to Conalloway, Conley, Conley, Corey, Cody, Coldly, and then Cody. So Cody is a translation. I mean, it's the name. The last name is been changed through the centuries, or the hundreds and hundreds of years. So it goes back to several of the Cody family emigrated to America in 1747, settling in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. The name is frequently mentioned in the Revolutionary history. Colonel Cody is a member of the Cody family of the Revolutionary fame. Like other Spanish-Irish families, the Codys have their proof of ancestry in the form of a crest, which Colonel Cody is entitled to use being printed afterwards, which is a lion with a arm and a cross, holding a cross. And it's a royal coat of arms. I don't have a picture of it except for this little picture, and I don't doubt you guys can see that. I don't know if you can see that little picture. You know how it goes with the little picture. Anyway, it's kind of goofy. But then, let's see. Good old-fashioned sort of family. Okay. His family came from a place in Scott County, Iowa. And where Blackhawk, we read about Blackhawk, remember him? And his thousands warriors had assembled for their last war dance, where the Marquis, General Scott, was erected and the Treaty of the Sacs and the Foxes drawn up, and where in obedience to the Sacs chief's terms. And then it goes on. So they were living in conquered land of Blackhawk. But by this time, all of them guys have moved on because, you know, Blackhawk had been conquered. Oh, he was writing Betsy Baker, a matter well known. Okay. I should underline some of this. Anyway, so his brother Samuel, he died riding a horse, believe it or not. Her name was Betsy Baker. And he was riding this horse.
The horse?
The horse was named Betsy Baker.
Okay. I wanted to make sure because I was like, huh?
Yeah, ain't that crazy? So Betsy Baker, the horse, Buffalo Bill is only, William is only about 7 years old at this time. And Betsy Baker, she sought to throw the rider, and he was told not to ride this horse, right? Don't ride that horse, son. You're going to get bucked off. And of course, what did he do? He rode the horse anyway. And then he went where all the kids were playing down by the school. And what did he do? Well, he showed off. And what did Betsy Baker do? She bucked. And he says, Betsy Baker, you don't quite come in and on time. His last words, as if she knew her rider was careless. The victor, and she caught him off guard, and the mare reared suddenly and flung herself upon her back, crushing him and the daring boy beneath her. So basically, she reared up and flipped over backwards and crushed him. Now, I know I've had that happen with horses with me, and it's not fun. You got to be really quick and get the heck out of the way, because when that horse comes backwards on you, you got 1,000 pounds of flesh, chucking at you. You know what I mean? It's not fun, and you get your leg pinned or something like that. It's not a good day. But anyway, he's a little boy. He got killed that way, and so one down. And so anyway, there's a little starting confirmation. Soothsayer. Okay, both receive incredible a prophecy. There was a prophecy, believe it or not. So Southern says, my mother visited a girl, then came celebrated a fortune teller, and led by curiosity my mother and my aunt. One day made two of the crowd and thronged the Sibyl's drawing rooms. Both received with laughing incredulity and the prophecy that my aunt and the two children with her would be dead in a fortnight. But the dreaded thing was fulfilled to the letter. All three were stricken with yellow fever and died within less than that time set. Wow, that was a good soothsayer, wasn't it? Okay. Against the fulfillment of prophecy. Okay. Okay. So the prophecy. So us young children, our brother Samuel was a shadowy memory, centered around our parents. The natural was a transition and helped in strange assimilating. My mother was a woman of too much intelligence to force a character to nourish the average superstition, but prophecies fulfilled with temper, though they may not shake the smiling unbelief of the most hard skeptic. My mother's moderate skepticism was not proof against the strange fulfillment of one prophecy which fell out of this. Okay, then the startling confirmation of the soothsayer's divining powers not unnaturally affected my mother's belief in the part of the prophecy relating to herself, that she would meet her future husband on the steamboat by which she expected to return home. Remember, her husband Isaac had died, who was Bill's father. That she would be married to him in a year and bear 3 sons. Oh, maybe that was her former. He married. Okay, maybe that I messed that up. So Isaac is the guy she's meeting, the Cody guy, and she'd already. Okay, so that she would be married to him in a year. Maybe I should just keep reading. To him in a year and bear 3 sons, of one whom only the second would live, but that the name of this son would be known all over the world and would one day be that of a president of the United States. The first part of the prophecies was verified when Samuel's death came, and another link in the curious chain of circumstances was it when the strange that the mother looked with unusual hope upon her second son. And 'tis a good fortune for the boy to be only brother to 5 sisters in the open question. The older girls and petted Will, the younger regarded him as a superior being, while it to all seemed so fit and proper in promise of the stars. Okay. And then we looked for the prophecy's complete fulfillment, and with childish veneration regarded Will as one destined to sit in the executive's chair. Anyway, so the whole point is that he was going to be as popular as the president. Who would have thought that would happen, right? So
from this little kid from Iowa.
Yeah, exactly. This mother, she goes in and she gets, with her aunt, and the soothsayer says, "Hey, you and your 2 children are going to be dead in a week." What would you say to that if somebody looked at, if you met somebody and they said, "Hey, you're going to be dead in a week, and your 2 children"? Would you believe them?
I personally, I would be at least a little skeptical, and I'd be careful for the next week.
Yeah, and especially when they say, "Oh, you're not just you." Yeah, not just you, but your children too. I'll get you, my pretties. But whatever that lady was, she was pretty accurate.
Yeah, they're still in Kansas, right?
Yes, now they're in Kansas, Leavenworth.
Okay.
And we're going to get to some of that. Okay, so what happens is that at the age of 11, Cody's dad is dead, and he decides, I got to get out of here. He's met people like and he says, he's this one of his relatives stops by the house, and he's a cowboy guy and helps him break a pony, and he is just thrilled, and he says, I want to be like that. Buffalo Bill was the kind of guy that when he met somebody that was he wanted to He really wanted to emulate that guy. He took on all the characteristics, like follow in the footsteps, you know what I mean? Especially after his dad died, he took on, like, he met up with Wild Bill Hickok. Now, he was a young guy at that time, but he was like a big brother to him. So he emulated him and, dressed like him, wore the big hat like him. Believe it or
Did he
not,
meet? Did he meet Hickok?
yes, they were good friends.
Okay, all right. So,
Well,
but that Hickok was his cowboy.
yes, he was one
Who
of the
he
first
em-
emulated. Yeah, and when he was a kid,
Okay,
because
okay.
he
I
came,
thought he met
he got,
another cowboy and then met Hickok.
yes, there was one of his relatives that stopped by the house, and he could work the horses and things like that, and he wanted to be like that guy. And he says, well, when I grow up, which wasn't too long after that, I want to be like that guy. Then when Buffalo or Wild Bill Hickok came along, they got to be good friends, and he was like a big brother to him.
I see.
And
Okay, all right.
and
So his relative was his first cowboy, and then Hickok what came later. Okay,
yeah, and he was actually from Pennsylvania. I'm pretty sure, if my memory is correct. Um, So anyway, everybody was heading out west because that was a big new frontier. If you wanted anything, you're going for gold. You're going for being a cowboy out there, herding, doing the buffalo thing. You got so much going on out there. It's like a wild party. If you want to make money, you can work hard and make some money. You know what I mean? So at the age of 11, he leaves, and he left at 11 to herd cattle and work as a driver on a wagon train crossing the Great Plains. Believe that or not, 11 years old. Uh, and he did that. And he was 11 years old on this wagon train when they got attacked by Indians. That's when he shot his first Indian. And I have that here somewhere. And when he shot his first Indian. Okay. Okay. So according to Cody's account, Buffalo Bill's own story, it was in the Utah War, which was between 1857 and 1858, also known as Utah Expedition. He presently, and this is from his account, presently, the moon, maybe I should get a picture up there. But anyway, the moon, dead ahead of me, and painted boldly across his face was the figure of an Indian. He wore this war bonnet of the Sioux. At his shoulder was a rifle pointed at someone in the river bottom, 30 feet below. In another second, he would drop one of my friends. I raised my old muzzle loader and fired. The figure collapsed, tumbled down the bank, and landed at the splash in the water. What is it? Called McCarthy, his friend, as he hurried back. It's over there in the water. Whew, he cried. Little Billy's killed an Indian all by himself. So began my career as an Indian fighter. And that's how it started. Can you believe that? Amazing, amazing, amazing how, he just seen an Indian. He didn't want his friend to get shot. So, and he had, remember, we showed muzzle loaders. He had a muzzle loader, Well,
at that time they would have both had muzzle loaders.
Yeah, the Indian probably didn't even have a gun. He probably, well, he did, I guess. He had a gun.
If
And
he if
the
he
Indian wore
shot,
a bonnet.
yeah. But
And
my
shoulder
point
was
is, at
yeah.
1857, 58, they had not come out with the repeater yet.
Nope.
So,
Not yet. Yeah, just muzzle loaders, breech
yep.
loaders, muzzle loaders. Yeah, it was the times. But anyway, we're gonna get to some pictures here in a second, people. Sorry for the long wait with the pictures, but I'm trying to get this all together. But anyway, that was at 11. But then, well, that wasn't getting him enough money quick enough. So he decided he's going to go to Colorado and pan for gold. So he takes off, goes to Colorado for 2 months, and he pans for gold. And let's see, this was 1859. He was 14 years old. Can you imagine you remember what you were doing at 14 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. You weren't
I had joined the carnival, so
well, and that's the thing. This guy's 14 years old. He's out in Indian country panning for gold all by himself at 14. I mean, that just blows my mind, killed his first Indian. I mean, you got to remember, it's wild country out there. This isn't just your normal, you know what I mean? Just everyday average stuff going on.
No, and if you go out there, I mean, where you live in the Dakotas, there ain't nothing for miles.
Yeah.
And, and he was where? Oh, Colorado, right?
Colorado, yes. And,
yeah, I mean, there was really nothing there.
Yeah. He went through Denver when Denver was a new town. He went up to this place called Black Hawk, and that's where he went to pan for gold, but that just didn't work out. He came back down to a place called Julesburg, Colorado, and he joined what was an early version of the Pony Express, where they didn't run all over the place. He was basically taking messages from Nebraska into Wyoming. He did this for quite a while, I mean, he running just basically a messenger, so that's what he was doing. He was just being a messenger, which I thought it's pretty good, you just get on and go and you're a messenger. Anyway, now
back in those days between forts, I mean, they had riders, and they had riders who were dedicated, they knew the route from, point A to point B, and they knew it well, so they'd send them out, and they knew how to avoid the Indian scouts and so forth. So them guys earned their money.
Yes,
and that was before the Pony Express. So the difference in that the Pony Express had a lot of support. Every so many miles there was a station. Every so many miles, they got a fresh horse and could get a drink or whatever they might need to do. But these guys, they had a saddlebag full of messages and off they went, and hope to God they made it there and back again,
Yep. So, and then he tried his hand at trapping. That didn't work out too good either. He was always trying for the big money. Anyway, so but anyhow, he what was it? The Civil War was coming on, and he was too young to join. At this point, he did join up with this group of hooligans. Basically, they called themselves the Red Leg Scouts, and they were young kids who got together like a gang, and they would go out and terrorize and do whatever. It wasn't the best years of his life there. It was a little shady, you know what I'm saying? A gang of kids running around called the Red Leg Scouts, being terrorizers, during the Civil War kind of thing going on. But in 1860, his mother died. And when she died, he promised her he wouldn't do that anymore. But somehow or another, he was doing more wagon trains and scouting and fur trapping and all this stuff. And somehow he liked to drink. Go figure. He liked to have a little bit of that whiskey. And he got drunk one night. And when he woke up in the morning, he realized he was in the army. He joined the army at the age of 18. Somehow or another, he ended up with the 7th Infantry Group of Kansas. He fought in the Pillow Massacre in Tennessee under Nathan Bradford Forrest. Well, after all of that fighting and everything, and he was in quite a few other battles, but the war was quickly over because, it was over in 1865. So he had a couple of years. They mainly put him as a teamster. So he was driving wagons. And in the end, he was in a hospital, being an orderly in a hospital. After all of that, he met up with this lady, Louisa Freda Ritchie, and she was quite well to do. And she lived in Leavenworth, Kansas. He went back down there and wooed her a little bit, and eventually he married her.
He must have woohooed her.
Yeah, he said she was the prettiest girl he'd ever seen. So anyway, but she was from a wealthier family, and she wanted him to get a good job, make money. He spent a lot of money, unfortunately. He decided he was going to work for he took $250,000, so she was pretty wealthy, and invested it in a town of Roma in Kansas or Nebraska. And the railroad was supposed to go through there, but they changed their mind and missed the town, and all his investment was lost. But if it would have hit the town, he would have been rich. He would have been a real rich man.
$200,000 back then was like a millionaire.
Yes.
Or more.
Shoot,
yeah. I wish I had that much money now.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, sorry.
No, exactly. 250,000 was like $1.5 million, or something. But anyway, lost all that. She was disappointed in him. So he decided he's going to get a job with the railroad. And so he gets a job with the railroad. And though they paid real well, he hunted buffalo. This is where he gets his name from. He hunted buffalo for the furs and for the meat. He contracted with the railroad to bring them meat for all their workers. They got these guys and they're hungry. And how are you gonna feed them? You're feeding them buffalo.
And they didn't have enough cows out west yet.
No. So yeah, because the buffalo were out there, and on the plains. Anyway, he had hired a crew of guys. He would go out and shoot the buffalo, and he was making $100 a day. Can you imagine making? But that was like making 10 grand a day at the time. You know what I mean? He's paying a whole crew. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because back then, if you made $50 a month, that was rich. Yes. If you were, worked as a hired hand, as a cowboy, if you made $50 a month plus room and board, that was good. So $100 a day, he was making it big time.
Yes, he was making the bucks. And that lasted for just so long. And when the railroad was complete, they said, well, the coffers dried up. We're done. That's that. We're see you later. And that was it. And he was done. He wasn't making money anymore. Of course, he liked to spend money as fast as he made it, which was really, kind of crazy. So what happened was then he went back and he met up with his buddy, Wild Bill Heacock. Now the war is over. He met up with him, and they got a job scouting for the army. It's Indian territory. Well, Wild Bill's doing pretty good there, and he says, "Well, hey, uh, while Buffalo Bill was, shooting buffalo out on the range, Wild Bill was being a sheriff and he was a lawman for a while, and this all ties together because he was doing his sheriff stuff, and he was the first man to have a shootout in the street, believe it or not. Wild Bill Heacock was. And that's where the popularity of the shootout was, where you do the 10 paces and you turn around and shoot at each other. That was Wild Bill Heacock that started that, believe it or not. Then
Wait. They had the
duel.
who was it? One of the presidents back in the 1700s. They had a duel.
Yes, that was different. That was like a setup. You grab your guns, you'd walk 10 paces, and then you fire at each other. Kind of, you know what I'm saying? Well,
Right.
Wild
And this
Bill
one they met face to face in the street.
Yeah, like, I'll meet you in the street at noon. It was kind of the same thing, but it was all over a woman and a watch and a gambling thing. And
well, the duels were always over something stupid like that.
Yes, exactly.
Excuse me.
But
the fighting over a woman was stupid.
Oh, yeah. Well, but the thing was, is they were out there going to have this duel, and duel, not a duel, but the gunfight. Well, Heacock won, and it got publicized in the papers, and next thing you know, he was in dime novels and things like that. Well, when he met up with Buffalo Bill, he's scouting for the Army, and he's making $50 a month. And so Buffalo Bill gets a job there, and now he's doing real good. He gets promoted. Now he's making 75, and eventually he worked himself up to like $100 a month. So he was a good scout. And where Wild Bill was telling him where he really makes his money is where he takes people and guides for individual parties, taking them across the, wherever they need to go across the plains, right?
Yeah, to get them through Indian territory.
Yes, exactly. And so Buffalo Bill started doing the same thing. And what happened is this guy, Ned Buntline, he came along and he was writing dime novels. And when he wrote these dime novels, he ended up, wanting to get Wild Bill in on it. And he met up with him in a bar, and Wild Bill drew his gun on him and said, "No, you're not. I don't have no part of this. Get away from me. I don't want the attention." But Buffalo Bill comes over and says, he goes over to the bar and he starts talking to him. He says, "Well, who are you?" And he says, "I'm Buffalo Bill." And next thing you know, he's all of a sudden, he's getting wrote about in a dime novel.
So all of a sudden, Buffalo Bill is famous because he bumped into a guy in a bar.
Yes, exactly. And
that's
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, I'm going to write a story about you, okay?
Yeah. Well, so Buffalo Bill had a friend that he hung around with called Texas Jack. So it was Buffalo Bill and Texas Jack. And they were like a team at this point, from the buffalo hunting and all of these things. What happens is Ned Buntline starts writing these stories, and he's famous. He is the best scout in the world. I forget what it was, the borderline king. He is the roughest, toughest scout in the West, and crazy stories if they happened or not. But here's the crazy part: Buffalo Bill's out there scouting, fighting Indians and things like that, and he gets real articles wrote in the newspapers about the deeds he's done. And then he ends up getting a dime novel once a week, wrote about his crazy stories he's done with a lot of fiction in there. So it gets really crazy what's going on. But it helps him because now people are coming out saying, I want Buffalo Bill to guide me across. I want Buffalo Bill to take me hunting. Well, he's making a ton of money now. And he moves his family. He's married. He moves his family out. He has a child. He has a little boy named.
He moves his family out to where?
From Kansas. No, he moves them to Nebraska.
Okay.
Somewhere in Nebraska. I can't remember exactly where. So they're closer. So he's making money. Everything's going really good. Let's see. He is. Let's see. He is doing. Scouting for the Army. He's gets known really well, and his big crowning victory there was he was getting so well known that one of the dukes now from Russia came out, and I gotta stop this so I can read it. Because even sometimes I can't remember all this stuff. I wrote down a bunch of notes, but he brought out the Duke, which was, let's see, I got to put here. I put all this stuff out. There's so much on him. Or Pony Express. Gosh, where is this?
And to fill in a little bit here, Buffalo Bill was one of the first, sure enough, like Elvis.
Yeah.
In that everybody knew who he was. And he wasn't a politician. He didn't, go out and ask for your vote. He was written about by a stranger, actually. They got to be friends, I'm sure, maybe. But his exploits, were publicized. And, they wrote about Custer and his last stand, but Custer was dead. So they couldn't write any, that was that. So it was a one story, it was a big thing, but that was that. So now Buffalo Bill is like once a week.
Yes. Yes.
He's like the Kardashians, there's something going on once a week. And so what a cash cow, Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was and he was getting more famous by the day. It says here this is what I was talking about. In 1867 he hunted buffalo for the Kansas Pacific. Then he was employed by the U.S. Army as a civilian scout guide for the 5th Cavalry. His experience and skills of planes made him an invaluable tracker and fighter. And on April 26, 1872, Cody became one of only 4 civilian scouts to be awarded the U.S. Congressional Medal of Honor during the Indian Wars in valor and action. Let's see. So that was where he. Then he got famous, and now, like I said, all these people want him. In the U.S. Army General Philip Sheridan saw in Cody a combination of charisma and frontier know-how, a natural public relations windfall for the Army of the West, which was in need of some good publicity. Under the protection of the Army, visiting dignitaries such as the Grand Duke Alexis of Russia took lavish hunting expeditions accompanied by General Sheridan, Major General George Armstrong Custer, with Buffalo Bill as their guide. These excursions were full-scale media events glamorizing both the military and Cody. And so, like I says, he got that going for him because they were, he was just that kind of guy. And then he got that publicity. And like I said, it all boils down to, I think, he's a line of royalty and maybe that comes through in the genes. You never know.
Yeah,
I
but
don't.
he was actually that good though, because otherwise he'd have
Yes,
been dead. He
yes,
was
yes,
that
he would have.
good, you know,
He
and
was.
so he didn't get a Congressional Medal of Honor because he was just some mamby-pamby scout. No, you know,
No.
he was one of four because they were so damn good back then in those days. I mean, if you didn't come home with an arrow in your back or something, and you know that the party you took, you know, they all made it. Everybody survived. I mean, you know,
Hmm.
so not only was he famous, but his reputation as a sure enough good scout. You know,
Yes,
so
yes.
it you
He
know he wasn't some. They didn't make him famous for nothing. He was
no,
famous for a reason. You
they
know.
didn't. Oh yeah, exactly. But he got the. It was he was just in that right spot at the right time, and he was good. And then, like I said, the Lexus of Russia. That was a famous guy. The you got the Philip Sheridan was a famous general, big famous general, and Custer was he was famous as all of them put together. You know what I'm saying? But here's where he got to be famous. During this time, the pulp fiction industry produced inexpensive magazines that romanticize the exploits of heroes and villains who roam the plains, including Buffalo Bill, a central figure of many of these inflated truths. In 1872, dime novel writer Ned Buntline persuaded Cody to portray himself on stage. Well, there's more to it than that. He hit the show business. So what happened was and I'll give you the scoop on this as we get rid of this, and then we go back to screen share. Anyway,
Something that was popular back then and is sort of still, they use talk shows now, but Mark Twain, for example, back in the day, you know, he wrote his books, but he made more money traveling around doing public shows in theaters
well,
and
well, what?
town
Yeah,
halls.
oh yeah. Well, it happened. Okay, so what happened is Ned Buntline. This, Cody was getting pretty famous by this time, and he invited him to New York, and so he did. He went to New York, and he got there, and they had plays in theaters, because they didn't have movies. They had plays, and one was a play of himself, fighting Indians and telling stories or whatever. So there's this actor up there playing him. And after the show, at the end of the show, they invited Buffalo Bill on stage. He came on stage and they said, say something. And he got stage fright and didn't want to say anything. And he basically mumbled through it and walked off stage like, yeah, hi, okay, I'm here. Oh my God, all these people. He says he looks in front of him, there's people, looks beside him, and there's people on the other side. There are people everywhere staring at him, and he was terrified. Well, he gets on the train and he goes back out west where he belongs, he says. But Ned Buntline was really persistent and kept sending him letters over and over saying, come on, this is where, make you an actor. And he says, I'm not an actor. He says, I will make you rich beyond your family's wildest dreams. Now, remember, his wife was wealthy and he was spent all her money, kind of thing. And his wife looks at him and says, you need to do this. There's a lot of money to be had here for little effort, And he says, no, I'm not doing it. That's not who I am. But Texas Jack, his best friend, says, I want to do it. Let's go. Let's go make some money. And then Buffalo Bill decides, well, Texas Jack, if you're going to go, I'll go too. So they head back and they go to do their first show. And it was such a failure. It was a failure, but it wasn't a failure. The Ned Buntline was the narrator, and he didn't even have a script for them. He wrote a script. It took him like 4 hours. They got on stage in Chicago. there's this huge sold out crowd, and Ned Buntline's up there doing his thing, and then some drunk guy comes up and throws with a whiskey bottle. Ned Buntline goes off script, yelling at the guy with the whiskey bottle. And then Buffalo Bill and Texas Jack forgot their lines. Ned Buntline looks at Buffalo Bill and says, Buffalo Bill, where you been? He didn't say nothing. Buffalo Bill, have you been out hunting buffalo? He still stands there, stage fright like you wouldn't believe. He couldn't say anything, didn't know what to say. So you got Buffalo Bill and Texas Jack standing up there in front of the stage, and Ned Buntline being the narrator of this whole thing, and Buffalo Bill, come on. And nobody's saying nothing. Well, somehow or another, one of the people in the crowd was a guy that Buffalo Bill had taken on an expedition on the plains to hunt buffalo. And he recognized this guy. And somehow or another, he comes out of his shell and says, hey, there's William such and such over there. I took that guy on an expedition, and he wanted to see the wild Indians. And, and we went hunting, and then he just went on and on and on and on, basically talking to this guy and telling the crowd the story about the wild Indians and when they, the guy didn't, that was hunting buffalo, and when they first seen his first wild Indian on the hill, across the way, he pretty much shit his pants because he's so terrified, and the crowd loved it because it wasn't great acting because it was really piss poor bad, but it was very entertaining. And then the show bug had caught Buffalo Bill because, so him and Texas Jack are up on the stage, and they got Indians running around, they're shooting at him and stuff. It was hilariously a mess. Basically, the reviews were terrible, except for it said they were very entertaining, and a star was born. And they went on the road for like 8 or 9 months, shows all over New York, Philadelphia, up and down the coast there, and he made like $60,000 in those few months, which was like $750,000 nowadays in a few months. If you could make $750,000 in about 8 months for little next to no work, you'd be doing pretty good.
If you can make $60,000 with little to no work, I mean, to that point, I wish I had that much right now. But anyway, yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. But Buffalo Bill, he liked to spend his money, invited his family, come on down. I am doing good, honey. Come on, bring the kids, and he's spending money like water. And when they got all done with their tour, he only had like $6,000 left. And he's like, so he went back to the plains again. And then he took a break for a couple of months. And then he came back and he did another tour, and they wrote some more stuff. But this time he was getting tired of Ned Buntline, and he says, hey, I think you're getting too much money. I'm going to do my own play. You're fired. Me and Texas Jack are going to do our own thing. And they did. And they went on the road, and they invited Wild Bill Heacock. He calls him, or basically he sent him a letter and says, come on down, make some good money. But Wild Bill gets down there. Their first show, of course, Texas Jack and Wild Bill are all, they're in the mood. They know what to do now. So they're supposedly
they're experienced.
Yes. Yeah. So they're sitting around the campfire, like on the stage. There's supposedly a campfire there, right? And they're sitting around, and they're going from one to the other, telling stories. And they got this big jug of whiskey, and they're, they do the jug of whiskey kind of thing, here, and then it's like here, and then pass it to the other guy, and then the other guy drinks, and then he tells a story, right? You know how it goes.
Yep.
Well, it gets to Wild Bill, and Wild Bill Heacock takes a drink, glug, 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 and he spits out all over the place, all over the stage. He says, "This ain't whiskey, this is tea." I can't tell a story without whiskey. And the show stops right there till somebody got him a bottle of whiskey. And he says he could tell the story. And then he gets his whiskey, tells his story. Everything would be was pretty good. Well, anyhow,
I imagine it got a laugh.
Oh yeah.
I imagine when he went, everybody in the place, but they were shocked, but eventually, and he was. I imagine it was quite hilarious.
Oh yeah. But Wild Bill didn't think it was so good because when the people were laughing, he was afraid and kind of that they're laughing at him, not at what they're telling and talking about. So
not at the joke, it was a funny joke that he did. But go ahead.
But he felt bad because he felt like they were laughing at him and not at what they were talking about. And I do believe I got some pictures of them guys together too, since we're talking about Wild Bill Heacock. And anyway, they were. Here we go. I know I got a picture of him because this was quite the show that they had. Come on, when you want to find the picture, you can't find the picture. I know I had the picture here. I'll keep looking. Anyway, they were doing the show. They were doing pretty good, but Wild Bill started getting crazy like. And he started shooting at the actors. That was the problem. Oh, there we go. Here you go. Here is Wild Bill Heacock, Buffalo Bill, and Texas Jack. And you can see how Wild Bill emulated Buffalo Bill emulated Wild Bill Heacock. He grew his hair long, was kind of wearing the same clothes, trying to be the same kind of guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And Texas Jack, he's doing his own thing, but all the stuff that Buffalo Bill did, the buckskin coat with the fringe and everything, that was Wild Bill Heacock's stuff. He was the originator of all that. He liked to dress in lavish clothes. So anyway, these guys were up on stage doing their thing. But then the Indians would come out, and Wild Bill liked to shoot. He was supposed to be shooting the blanks of the gun over the heads of the Indians, but instead he was shooting at their legs and their feet, and they were all getting all mad because these were actors acting like Indians, right?
Right.
They weren't real Indians. And here they all are dressed up in their garb. You see how he's wearing this hat and just kind of, same thing, the fringe and, knife guns, he's emulating it for good. But you can see the age, he's about 30, he's about 22, 23, something like that, right about there.
Who?
Buffalo Bill. He's about 22, something like that, 22, 23. And
he was in his 30s.
What? He was in his 30s?
Buffalo did, because he was born in the 40s. And this was 72 or later, 17,
okay,
1880. So he'd have been at least 30.
Yeah. I think he was, he was like 10 years. Wild Bill was like 10 years older than him. I'm getting the two mixed up. Sorry. Good thing you're keeping
No, but I mean, that's what I'm thinking. He was at least in his 30s by this time.
Yeah. Well, he's out there making. I'm trying to find out the numbers here. I wish I'd wrote more down. Anyway, the point is that he they were doing their thing. Wild Bill Hickok finally just quit. He had enough and he quit. So this is what it would have looked like in color if you would have went and seen them on stage. Can you imagine going to a theater and seeing Wild Bill Hickok, Buffalo Bill, Texas Jack, and I don't know who these other guys are, but what a production. I mean, I'd have given anything to go see that. But they had packed houses. I guess the shows were always packed. It was quite the thing. They were always packed. And it caught on. And because they were getting famous and everything, a lot of these guys started doing it. It wasn't just these guys. Next thing you know, he's kind of out of a job. We're going to fast forward a little bit to some of this because Buffalo Bill kind of worked himself out of a job. He was the first guy to be on stage playing himself, telling these stories, being an actor. And then all of a sudden, other people were doing the same thing. And then his shows weren't filling up so much. Things weren't working out so good. And he went back out onto the prairie and he started fighting Indians again. This was in 1876, after one of his last performances in around Philadelphia. He trucked on back. He was commissioned by the government again to come out and be a scout because Custer had just gotten, killed off, and they were hunting the Indians down, and they called him up and said, "Can you come out and be a scout again?" And he said, "Sure, I'll come." So he goes out there, and sure enough, he's, helping some messengers out. He's scouting, and some Indians come up, and they have a little battle. They're way ahead of the big troop, and they had a battle, and he kills the Indian chief Yellow Hair in the process. He killed Yellow Hair. Apparently, they were racing each other head to head, horse to horse, and Buffalo Bill shoots the horse out from under Yellow Hair, and the horse falls. Buffalo Bill's horse catches a hole and also falls to the ground. Now the two men are on foot and they're running towards each other. Well, both of them grab their guns and fire. And the Indian did not make his mark, but Buffalo Bill's gun was sure and true. And Yellow Hair dropped to the ground, and he ran over there and scalped him and grabbed his headdress. Apparently he had a headdress on at the time, and grabbed the headdress and the scalp and said, "This is the first scalp for Custer." And that became a famous saying at that time. And he sent the scalp and the headdress back home to his wife.
Whoa!
Ooh, what a present! She was probably really happy because apparently at that point she was in New York, living in New York, because he was doing all those things. Anyway, Secret of Truth. There you go. You're late, but don't worry. There's good stuff to be coming. And anyway, he gets there, and this is where he has to rethink things. He's out there doing this, and he says, "You know what? I got a great idea. I'm going to do do this Yellow Hair, skit. Now I'm going to do the play about the battle with Yellow Hair and da. So he has to rethink things, and he gets this guy. I can't remember his name, but they get together, and he says, "Let's start the Wild West show." And, outside with a big arena, something new. And sure enough, they start this Wild West show. And it basically begins at during the centennial, or not, in 1877, where he is out west in a town. I can't remember which town in Nebraska. And the town is going to have some horse races or something like that, and some foot races, and do the old celebration, right? Well, Buffalo Bill comes in and says, oh, you can't do that. You got to do it more than that. And they said, fine, if you want to do more than that, go ahead. And what did he do? He knew how to advertise. He puts up posters and flyers, and he sends out advertisement all over the West telling people to come to this town. We're going to have the biggest celebration ever. And what did they do? They did. He was the guy who started, believe it or not, rodeo. This is where rodeo got to be famous, because he did bronc riding. He did the bull riding. They rode bulls and buffaloes and foot races and, all that stuff that you see today on the rodeo. That's where it started. And he promoted that, and then it, took on it. I mean, they did it, but he advertised it, made it popular. Another thing that he did that made things popular was when you go to a baseball game, what do they sing there? What do they sing at the beginning of a baseball game, football game, or football, whatever?
Oh, the national anthem.
That's right. And he was the first to start that tradition, believe it or not, before it actually became the national anthem of the United States. And so there you go. Well, and as we get going, well, anyway, he started the Wild West show, and it was a big, huge hit. And eventually he hired the Indians to play Indians, because you couldn't hire Indians to play Indians. You had to hire white people to play Indians. But then Rutherford B. Hayes became president, and the law got changed. And so this is where we get back to black elk. So the law got changed, and Buffalo Bill could hire Indians to play in his Wild West show. Now, Indians were all on the reservations. They couldn't do much. They didn't have any money, but this was a great opportunity for him, because he paid them $10 a week to be in the Wild West show. He gave the men $10, the women $10, and he gave a small allowance to the children. So he let these guys come on his Wild West show.
Wow, that's pretty good.
It was. They said that in today's money, these Indians would have been earning, basically they were earning huge amounts of money. Plus they did the little things on the side, like take pictures and sell their autographs or whatever, like Geronimo did. So these Indians, these chiefs and everybody came along, and I don't know if any of these are black elk. I wouldn't know, but he brought them along, and they acted in the the show, did their thing, and they got paid well. Their wives got paid. They got to travel. They went over to Europe, and this is where black elk comes in. He signed up, and he says, I want to know what the Wasichus do. I want to know their magic, and maybe I can learn something. So he goes ahead and he joins up with Buffalo Bill, and they go to England. And when he got to England, they go on the boat, and the Indians thought they were going to die. The waves, and they all got seasick, and they brought buffalo along, and elk and deer, and some of those things were dying on the way, and they were throwing them overboard, and the Indians were all sick, and it was a crazy time for them. But black elk had gotten over to England, and oh, wait a minute, I don't want that one just yet. Anyway, he got over to England, and black elk acts, he does the thing. He got to meet the queen, things like that. But when the boat was leaving, black elk, he didn't make the boat on time, and he was stranded there in England for a good year or so. And he ended up working for in some other circus stuff. And eventually, when Buffalo Bill came back with his Wild West show back to England, He says, I want to go home. He went back to Buffalo Bill and he says, I've been stranded here. I want to go home. And Buffalo Bill gave him money, got him a ticket, gave him money so he could get all the way back to Pine Ridge where his family lived. Believe it or not. During that year or so, Black Elk had almost died. He was so close to death from some sickness or whatever, but he had a dream that he flew back to his home and seen his mother and father and stuff. But they were building him a casket because he was almost that far gone. But then one day he just woke up and he was all better, believe it or not. But the point is Buffalo Bill did great things for the Indians. Black Elk says in his book that, you know, when I'm with Buffalo Bill in his show, I could dance all the Indian dances I want. But when I got back home, this was about the time the Wounded Knee massacre happened, the government banned all Indian dancing.
Yep.
And so now he couldn't even dance his Indian dances when he got home. But for Buffalo Bill, he could dance all the dances he wants, and then they pay him for it. How crazy is that? This is the Indians getting to meet the Queen. There's no picture, but there's a drawing. This is not Annie Oakley, but Lillian Smith. She met the Queen. That's Lillian. There's Annie's Oakley's in here somewhere too. There's Annie Oakley. Annie Oakley, back in the 1800s, she was the queen of shooting. There's Buffalo Bill and them. There's the pictures I wanted. There's Geronimo. Geronimo even worked for Buffalo Bill's Wild West and Pawnee Bill. And there's more Indians. Buffalo Bill, his daughter, and Sioux Chief. In 1902. Geronimo riding in a car. Believe it or not. There's Geronimo. He made a ton of money. Geronimo made a ton of money by selling buttons off his jacket and posing for pictures. Believe it or not. And Buffalo Bill's show kind of went off the rails. It became Buffalo Bill's and Pawnee Bill's show. And why is this? And it was because I missed a slide here earlier. There was one, and this was this slide. Let me go back to this one. There was a train wreck. And in 1902, I think it was 1901, in the aftermath of the wreck, show members, including cowboys who had been part of Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders and the American Indians from the Sioux Nation, stayed in Linwood until they could return to work. Yes, no people died in the crash, but Cody's show suffered catastrophic losses. Among the 110 horses that died, 2 were the showman's personal mounts, Old Pap and Old Eagle, along with 2 stallions Cody received from Queen Victoria. Only 2 horses survived the crash. One of them was Duke, Cody's favorite. When Cody arrived at the scene, eyewitnesses say he blinked back tears as he told his men to get their guns and do what we have to do. One account says he pursued some of the freight train crew with his gun drawn and shot at him and stuff. But anyway, the point is that they put the same 2 trains on the same track and they collided. This is where Annie Oakley, she was injured. She was sleeping in her bed, and when the trains smacked together, she was thrown from her bed. She was injured terribly, and it said after that, she said she needed surgery to repair herself, and her hair turned all white because of this thing. He sued the railroad and won $65,000 lawsuit. Believe it or not. Which back in them days, $65,000 was almost like $1 million. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And here's Buffalo Bill and some of his horses. This one was, I can't remember, Old Army or something. And I mean, he had quite the bunch of horses. Really nice ones too. Oh boy. old Duke or old Pat. Old Pat. But we got a treat for y'all. We got a treat. I got to stop sharing. We got one last thing. One last thing, and then I can let you read your story. Sorry about all the wait here, but this is this. Okay. Now, we're going to take you back to yesterday. And when Buffalo Bill came to town, oh, this is one of the better ones, I think. When Buffalo Bill came to town, now just close your eye, or don't close your eyes, open your eyes and picture this. And I'm going to put together as best as I can, because this is what would happen in 1910 when Buffalo Bill came to town. And we're going to go with this. And here we go. Oh, shoot. No, stop shit. I didn't hit the right button. Okay. Here we go. I hope you all like this. There's Buffalo Bill and the Indian chiefs. Imagine that in town. Holy cow. It was a parade. I mean, they literally had a gigantic, enormous parade. They must have employed like 200 people or more. 300 people? Military guys, cowboys, all decked out in their Western gear. Look at that lady's horse prancing. Women, men, band, the whole 9 yards.
There's women in uniform right there.
Yeah, look at, here comes the Mexicans. There's caballeros. Military guys. Holy cow. There's the band. The cowboy band he had. He didn't just have a band, he had the cowboy band. The Arabians. He had the Arabs with him.
Oh my God.
And the Africans. And the Russians. Germans. Oh, shebang. I don't know who those, the Japanese or Chinese? Oh, look at that guy. He looks like he's from... This is where the whole thing is put together. Pounding posts. Big horse wagons. There he is. Look at, for an old guy, he can get on a horse and ride, can't he? And he just hopped right up there.
Yeah, he would have been, if he was born in 43, and this was 1910.
Yeah. He'd have
been like 65, 70.
Well, he died at 70, so.
Okay, so.
In 1917, so 7 years, so 60, 62, 63. Look at all the horses. Look at the crowds. Oh my gosh. All the horses. I bet you they had 500 horses with them. Oh yeah, look at Japan, China. Americans. There he is. Now watch his horse. Look how his horse just backs right up. That's a well-trained horse.
Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to introduce to you a Congress of the Rough Riders of the World.
The Congress and the Rough Riders of the World. Ain't that something? How entertaining. Unbelievable. See, that's where they have bucking horses. Imagine having to get on a horse and buck it out every day for your pay.
Look at the crowd.
Yeah. Like I said, they had packed stadiums all the time.
And watching those guys was like the Blue Angels flying overhead.
Yeah. Okay, we ain't got to do all of this. I got to stop this for a second. Okay. That one. We got to go to the next here. I want to get one here. This I got a lot more people. You can go look this up on but now in his final years, everything was kind of going to shit. But Buffalo Bill, he is so fascinating. If you guys can pick up a book of this and read it, I'm going to have to do a whole show on him eventually. But here's the thing. He decided at the end there, you know, the new thing isn't the Wild West, it's movies. And so he decided to start making movies. And here's a clip of a movie of him. Silent pictures, of course. Look at riding his horse through the water, being a scout. you got to remember he's in his 60s or so here, you know, and he's got his Western gear on, and look at he's pointing over there. Hey, look. I see.
He's counting how many Indians there are. See, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. He's pointing. He's really dressed up for the character, though. I gotta hand it to him. You know, he's got his gun in his hand. He's riding his horse. Horse ain't rolling is good. He's really acting.
Now imagine going and paying a nickel to go see that film at a theater, because that's what it cost a nickel back in those days to go to a silent film.
Yeah. And then
at the silent movie houses, most of them, they had a piano player that would play honky tonk type, it would have been the 1900s kind of music. I can't think of the word right now, but and there were times when the piano player would actually say some words and like mouth what the actor was saying on the movie before the talkies came out. And sometimes they would hold up little cue cards as to what they were talking about. So, but anyway,
this one here, he's doing this is sign language.
Yep.
Indian sign language and with the Indian. And I just thought this was really interesting. Like, wow, he knew how to. I mean, this guy was.
That's
talented.
the real deal.
Yeah, that's the real deal, man.
That's not made up stuff. That's the real deal right there.
Yes, that's the real deal. That's why I pointed it out as so important. I mean, I thought this was a really good one to show, he's having a conversation with this guy with sign language. And of course, they're making noise, mouth. I just thought that's so fascinating. This guy was the real deal. I mean, no wonder why he got to be famous, because he was the guy.
Well, and also too, I'm sitting here thinking, he went from killing the Indians
yes,
to hiring them.
Yes,
and
and that,
and in a lot of ways glorifying them, because the United States government was basically trying to put them on a reservation, and he took them all on tour.
yes, and literally
So,
he
yeah,
spent.
rather than being on the res, I mean, I can imagine how many people were kind of pissed off at that, but he was making so much money, and it was better that he was taking them to New York City rather than having to fight them, you know.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
guess they figured it was just better to, all right, well, we'll accept this, well, but they still couldn't dance, could they?
Where in the show they could, but
Oh,
when
in
they
the
got
show
back,
they could,
they got
but they
back,
but they couldn't dance on their own at the on the res.
nope. which
Now, ain't
which
that some stuff?
yes,
Ain't that some? So the traveling powwow, that's how they got started.
yeah. I
I
just
mean,
thought, like I said, I just I'm amazed, how he ended up treating these in. They were making money, whereas on the res they weren't making any money.
no, they were
They
starving to death.
Yes, they were starving. They were being treated badly. They couldn't do anything, etc. Their land was being sold off. Their reservation areas were being dwindled, but he employed them, gave them good money, let them do whatever they needed to do, and I think we got to give our hats off to Buffalo Bill, because like I said, in 1876 or so, he was out there scalping an Indian, and then a couple few years later in the 1880s, he's out there employing the Indian.
Right.
Amazing.
And exactly. And I mean, what I want to say a testament to human beings,
Yeah.
in that he was a scout, and he scalped an Indian and killed him, in hand-to-hand combat, after
Yes.
he came back from New York City, and
Mhm.
so talk about hands-on, and then to go from that to, having them literally be their blood brothers, and they traveled around together and did the shows together, because having grown up on a carny and traveling around the South, we didn't go overseas or anything, but you get a group of folks who travels from town to town to town to town, and there's a camaraderie, there's a family thing that is there with the group, and here they had to have been close,
Mhm.
um, because they had to go and do this thing, and perform, and like I said, traveling troops, circus people,
Yeah.
they come from all around, but when they go out and do the circus thing, they're all one family. But anyway, so and I come to think of it, circuses traveled around, but he made that kind of thing even more popular.
Well, yeah, and then and in the end, there, like the 1900s, they got together. The Barnum and Bailey, right? Barnum and
Right.
Bailey,
That's
Ringling
what I was
Brothers.
just fixing to say. Yep.
Believe it or not, he teamed up with Bailey, and Bailey was scheduling because he needed somebody to schedule his shows. He couldn't do it all himself. Bailey was coordinating his shows so that they didn't overlap with the Barnum's shows. That's where it was Barnum and Bailey, Ringling Brothers, right? And it was
Right.
also Buffalo Bills and Bailey's show. Go figure. Like I said, he knew all the famous people. By it says, I read in here, it says by 1899, Buffalo Bill was the most famous American in the world. Can you believe that?
Yep.
And I mean, he was probably more famous than the president. He went to all the countries. He went to, Europe, did the tour, went all the way to Russia, went back. He went to the Americas. He was going everywhere. He had, like you've seen in the pictures there, when he teamed up with Pawnee Bill and stuff, they had elephants in his show. I wish I could go back in time and enjoy that show, because something like that could never happen today. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. I mean, people protest when you have elephants and in your, in the circus, they protest to the point where they don't have elephants in the circus anymore. They protest for everything. Oh my gosh, you put a man on a horse and he's bucking. Oh my God, you run those darn buffalo around. Don't you give them a break? Don't you give them a little water? Oh my gosh, you're cruel to those animals. They don't have earplugs in, because you're shooting guns, and you can't have guns because, oh my gosh, that's just teaching people, we can't have that stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everything he would have did fighting the Indians and stuff. As soon as he would get up there and say, in this Indian fight, I scalped Yellow Hair and shot him dead. And, people would be out there protesting, saying he said Indian and he was shooting at him, and how cruel, and he's, oh my God, he should have said, there's Native Americans are coming. Do you think he actually said that, or do you think he just said, Indians? See, that's why it would never work today.
I think that in something like that, I think he would have said something like my red brothers.
Maybe, yeah, exactly.
Because they considered that kind of thing. So, this is they were the red man, they were the Indians. So before they were, talked about Indian, they were the red man.
Yep. Yep.
So I could see where it'd say, "These are my red brothers," or something like that. So as part of their introduction, if that is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, what would he say? Yeah, he might have said that too. But still, they would have been on the advertisements as Indians. They wouldn't have been put on the advertisements as, oh, we got the Native Americans. It'd been. Let's see if I can find one of those advertisements.
They would have definitely said Indian. Back then. Yep.
Yeah, Buffalo Riders, the Congress of the Rough Riders of the World, covered a grandstand and seating. Nope.
Covered grandstand seating.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've seen in the pictures all those grandstands.
Right, but I mean that they specified on the poster covered. I'm just saying. That's
Look
important.
at all those people he had working for him. This was the troop. How they have the big. Look at all those people. Black Elk might be in there somewhere. But look at all. That's a group of people, man.
And that's what I mean. I mean that you can bet that they were family to travel around. I'm sure that there was discord between folks, but you traveled around with that many people. You have to, especially to put on a show.
Yes.
My hat's off to them. Over 100 years ago, God bless them.
This one is even better. Okay, as the show got going, do you see what's in the small print right down here? And Congress, or the Rough Riders of the world, 2 electric plants with 250,000 candle power. They were doing night shows once electricity came around, because the thing is undercover, rain or shine, shows, and they were doing it in the evening, at night. They lit up the arena with lights. He was the first to do that too. This guy did a lot of firsts. Did you know Did you know when kids play cowboys and Indians, that started because of Buffalo Bill? Believe it or not. That was started because of Buffalo Bill. The anthem, rodeos, cowboys and Indians, all Buffalo Bill. And we can go on about him forever. Even built his own town, Cody, Wyoming. We can go on and on. But anyway, you got to get on with this story tonight.
Well, yeah, if you'll ever.
I know. This was just very interesting. It was very interesting. But you're all set.
I'm not complaining.
It was good. I think I'm going to do a separate show on just Buffalo Bill and put it together, because this is quite the thing. I got a lot of information on him. Once I read this book, The Last of the Great Scouts, Life Story of Colonel William F. Cody, by Helen Cody. Yes. Okay, it's all yours.
All right, hang on. You didn't give me much of a segue. All right, our story for this evening is called Mink and His Uncle. And the characters are, and if you all can see what's on that page, Duau Dahandang Eg. Two Feathers. I think Two Feathers is easier to say. Mink is Hathondes, or Geodaga. And Theodu Huaishi is Woodchuck Leggings, the Deceiver. I gotta rearrange here a little bit and get my cursor in the right spot. So Mink and his uncle. A man and his nephew lived together in a cabin in the woods. The uncle's name was Two Feathers. The nephew's was Mink. Hathonides the listener. Uncle and nephew were very poor. Their food was the fungus of trees and a kind of wood mushroom. When they had lived in the woods a long time, and the boy was almost a man, his uncle said one day, "Tomorrow go to the ravine and listen. As soon as you hear something, come back and tell me what it is. At the bottom of the ravine, you will find a log. Sit on the log and listen." The nephew did as his uncle told him to. He went to the ravine and listened. When he heard the call of a bird, he was so frightened that he started up and ran home. Tumbling headfirst into the cabin, he cried, "Oh, uncle, I have heard something." "Wait, nephew," said the uncle, "till I light my pipe and let the smoke go up." When the smoke was rising from the pipe, the boy told what he had heard, imitating the call of the bird. "Oh, nephew," said the uncle, "that is nothing. Go again tomorrow." The next day, the boy went to the ravine, sat on the log, and listened. Soon he heard the cry of an owl. He ran home and tumbled headfirst into the cabin, cried, "Oh, uncle, I have heard something." "Wait, nephew," said the uncle, "till I light my pipe and let the smoke go up." When the boy told what he had heard, imitating the cry, the uncle said, "That is nothing. Go again tomorrow." Each day the boy heard the call of a different bird and told his uncle, imitating the call. After several trips to the ravine, he heard women singing. And their song said, I am going after the nephew of the two-feathered man. The boy thought, I will listen and learn that song. Soon he heard it again. Then he went home, and when smoke was rising from his uncle's pipe, he told what he had heard and sang the song. His uncle said, That is what I wanted you to hear. 2 women are coming after me. We must get ready for them. He put nice skins on his own couch, but threw his nephew's blanket on the ash heap in the corner and told him to lie there while the women were in the house, to keep quiet and not show his face. The old man put on his best clothes and tried to be as nimble and bright as a young man, and kept sending the boy out to see how near the women were. At last, when they were quite near, the boy ran in crying, Oh, uncle, they are here. Lie down on your blanket and don't stir, said Two Feathers. The women came in bringing a basket of marriage bread. The old man hurried around to make everything pleasant for them, but they were continually looking toward the ash heap where Mink was. When night came, Two Feathers spread down a blanket for the women to lie on and said, Here is a nice place for you to sleep. But they went over to the ash heap and lay down near Mink. The boy was asleep, but they smoothed his hair and spoke pleasant words to him. Early in the morning, the women went into the forest and each gathered a backload of wood. When they put the wood down near the house and pulled out their straps, the wood increased till it was a great pile. Then they started for home. When Mink woke up, he was a young man, strong and fine-looking. The uncle said, You are a man now. You must follow those women. I will get you ready and teach you how to hunt. You will have power. Those women are the daughters of a great chief. Two Feathers brought an outfit for his nephew. A panther coat, wildcat leggings, owl skin moccasins, and an otter skin headdress with a white heron on it. He smoothed the bird, blew on it, and it came to life. He brought a tobacco pouch made of a fawn while it was spotted. He smoothed the pouch, and the fawn came to life. On the pipe stem sat 2 pigeons. The uncle said, These birds will bring you coals to light your pipe, and whenever you spit while smoking, you will spit wampum beads. He gave him a bow and arrows and said, These arrows will never miss. The young man put on the clothes. They fitted him and were beautiful to look at. He took them off. The cap became a live otter, the coat a live panther, the leggings a pair of wildcats, and the moccasins 2 owls. Now, said Two Feathers, I will teach you to hunt. They went a short distance from the cabin. The uncle said, You must think what kind of game you want, and then call it. I will call a deer. Two Feathers made the call that a young fawn makes, and soon a deer came into sight, and then a second deer, and a third came. The young man shot all his arrows away, and each arrow killed a deer. They pulled the arrows out, and Two Feathers said, Always wipe the arrows clean and smooth with your hand. Now that I have as much meat as I need, you may start. I will put something on your feet to make you a swift runner, and I will hang up a wampum belt so that I will know if misfortune comes to you. Two Feathers hung up the belt and said to his nephew, When you are well, the wampum will be high. If you are sick, it will lower till it nearly touches the ground. If you die, it will drag on the ground. When you think that I have eaten all of the meat, you must come and get me more. Go straight east. About midday, you will find a trail. Follow it. You will meet Woodchuck Leggings, an old man, but pay no attention to him. Hurry along. The young man started early in the morning and traveled till sunset without meeting anyone. Just at sunset, he heard a cry of distress. He thought, I must be careful. Maybe that is the man my uncle told me about. Soon he saw an old man running around a tree, making a great fuss and acting as though there were coons or something up in the tree. When he saw Mink, he called out, Oh, my dear nephew, come and help me kill these white martins. The young man, remembering his uncle's words, went along. The old man ran after him, begging him not to leave him, to stop and help him kill the martins. When the young man was far beyond the tree, Woodchuck Leggings cried, You needn't stop, only point an arrow and shoot. You will kill a marten. Your arrows never miss. Mink thought, It will do no harm to shoot an arrow. He shot and killed one of the martens. And then Woodchuck Leggings begged him to kill another. He shot again and hurried along. The old man picked up the martens and ran after Mink, calling to him to stop and take his arrows. Mink waited for him to come up, and then Woodchuck Leggings said, I know where you are going. I'm going there too, but we can't get there tonight. I have a place where we will rest till daylight. The old man walked fast and kept talking all the time. When it was getting dark, he said, We must wait till morning. It wouldn't do to get there in the night. Mink thought this might be true, for his uncle had told him that he would reach the place at sundown. They gathered a pile of wood and built a fire. Among the pieces of wood was a hickory stick. The old man said, I can whittle an arrow for myself out of this while you are sleeping. I will sit on one side of the fire, and you can lie down on the other side. You can go to sleep as soon as you like. Old men sleep less than young men. They skinned the martens and cooked them. After eating, Mink took off his clothes and lay down by the fire, and right away was asleep. Woodchuck Leggings began whittling. He thought, There is no hurry. I have him now. When he had the hickory stick well sharpened, he crept up to steal the young man's clothes. But the coat, now a panther, wouldn't let him come near. He fed pieces of meat to the beast till it was pacified. When he reached for the leggings, 2 wildcats were there and wouldn't let him touch them. He pacified the cats as he had with the panther. At last he had the whole outfit, except the bow and arrows. Those he forgot. Then he went to Mink and thrust the sharpened hickory stick through his backbone. Mink woke up, but he couldn't speak. He was in such agony. He saw Woodchuck Leggings throw his dirty clothing down by the fire and hurry off. Two Feathers knew when his nephew shot the first arrow, for he was watching the wampum and he saw it lower. He felt badly. He knew that Woodchuck Leggings had deceived the young man. when Woodchuck Leggings thrust the hickory stick into Mink's back, the wampum belt came nearly to the ground. Two Feathers groaned, threw ashes over his head, and said, "I shall mourn for you 10 summers." Woodchuck Leggings knew the power of the clothes he had stolen, and as he hurried along, he smoothed the white heron on the cap and said, "You must call out when we are near the chief's house." The bird was silent. When Woodchuck Leggings was near the house, the chief's elder daughter ran out to meet him. Everyone wondered how she could go to such an old man. She called to her younger sister and asked, "Why don't you speak to our husband? We haven't been at Uncle's cabin, and now he has come for us." "That is not the man we went to," said the girl. "I will not go into the house while he is there." And taking her blanket, she went to a hut in the cornfield. Woodchuck Leggings wanted to show his power. He said to his wife, "Ask your mother for a deer skin. I'm going to smoke, and I shall spit wampum beads." The mother was pleased, and she gave the largest and best deer skin she had. Woodchuck Leggings drew out his pouch, spotted like a young fawn, and told it to stand up, but it fell down, and do what he could, it wouldn't stand. "Oh," said he, "it is timid. There are so many people looking at it." He took out his pipe and told the birds to get coals. They didn't move, and everyone wondered why he talked to dead things. He smoked and spat, but spittle it remained. After a time, he told his wife to roll the skin up and put it away, and when it was unrolled, they would find wampum. The next morning, he went out to show his skill as a hunter. He called deer, but not one came. At last, he killed a small fox. While he was skinning it, the heron on his cap kept drooping over. He pushed it back till its white feathers were black. When he got home, he told his wife to cook the fox. "It smells badly," said she, but she cooked it, and as soon as she took the kettle from the fire, he began eating the hot meat. Her brothers wouldn't touch it. Each one said, "It smells badly." When Woodchuck Leggings left Mink, he was in agony. But about midday, he crawled to where the old man's clothes were, and with a great effort put them on. Then on his hands and knees, he went towards the chief's house. He saw a cornfield and thought, "I will go there first, for I am hungry." He went to the middle of the field where the stalks were put together for a hut. In the hut was a bed made of husks. After eating an ear of corn, Mink lay down on the husks and went to sleep. The younger sister had gone for food and was starting back when her father said, "Your sister is married, but you are living out in the cornfield. Stay here." She stayed that night, but in the morning she stole off to the hut. She found a man sleeping on the husks. His clothes were in rags, and he seemed to be in great pain. But she recognized him, and when he woke up, she said, "You are the young man my sister and I went for. But an old man came for us, and my sister is his wife." Mink told the girl everything just as it had happened, and showed her the hickory stick in his back. She made him a soft bed, covered with a skin blanket, and fed and cared for him. He made her promise not to tell that he was there, for he wanted to punish Woodchuck Leggings. The next day he said to the girl, "Tell your father that a man has had a dream, and that he, as chief, must see it fulfilled." The man's dream said that the chief's son-in-law was to meet him at a sweat house, and that all the people must be there to witness the meeting. She told her father the dream, and he had a sweat house built and heated. In the house was a great kettle of water, and many red-hot stones were ready to throw into it. The chief's 10 sons and his son-in-law and all the people of the village came to the sweat house. Soon they saw an old man coming, led along by the chief's younger daughter. The girl's brothers were ashamed of her, and everybody wondered how a beautiful girl could care for such a wretched-looking, dirty old man. Woodchuck Leggings said to the ragged man, "Go into the sweat house first." "No," said the ragged man, "we will take our clothes off out here." They stripped and went into the sweat house. The hot flint stones were thrown into the kettle and the door was closed. Right away, the 2 men began to sweat. Every minute, Mink reached to his back to see if the hickory stick was loosening, and after a time, he pulled it out. As Woodchuck Leggings sat bent over, Mink suddenly thrust the hickory stick into his back, saying, "I have done just what I wanted to." Then he went out of the sweat house, picked up his own clothes, and smoothed them. The panther and wildcats and owls came to life. He smoothed his cap. The heron screamed with joy. Then everyone knew that he was the real owner of the clothes. All this time, Two Feathers was crying and singing, "10 summers I will mourn for him." But once in a while, he rubbed off the ashes and looked at the wampum. One day when he looked, he saw that the wampum had gone up. Then he was happy, for he knew that his nephew was well again. He washed the ashes from his face, brushed his cabin, made a fire, and began to cook meat. The young man dressed and went to the chief's house. The crowd followed. They left the old man in the sweat house. After eating, Mink sat down to smoke. He shook his pouch. It became a beautiful little fawn, walked around and looked at everyone, then was a pouch again. He filled his pipe. The birds flew and brought coals. He began smoking and spitting, and he spat wampum beads, which rolled around everywhere, and the crowd rushed to pick them up. Early the next morning, the young man went to hunt. He called deer, and he killed one after another till all of his arrows were used. He pulled out the arrows, cleaned them, and went back to the chief's house and told his wife to send her 10 brothers to bring home the deer. The chief was astonished that so many deer could be killed near the longhouse. He sent out a runner to tell the people to come with their head straps and carry home all the meat they wanted. Each time the young man smoked, he spat wampum, and soon the whole village had plenty of meat and plenty of wampum. One day, when Mink was out in the forest, he saw a large birch tree, which he thought would make good ladles. He was cutting off a bough when he heard somebody say, "Look here." He looked up and saw 2 beautiful women. One called, "Come here." Why are you cutting off the limbs of that tree? That is an old man's work. When he paid no attention to her, she said to her sister, he is a proud fellow. I shall have to go to him. Come along, she said. Taking hold of Mink, she pulled him onto a log. She sat down on one side of him and her sister on the other side, and they began to comb his hair. Soon, Mink was sound asleep, and then one of the women took a canoe out of her pocket and stretched it till it was large enough for 3 persons to sit in. When the 3 were in the canoe, the younger woman sang, "Fly, my canoe, fly." The canoe rose in the air and went toward the west. After it had gone a long distance, the women brought it to the ground, shook the young man, wakened him, and asked, "Do you know this place?" "This is the place where my uncle and I used to hunt." "We must go further," said the woman, "as far as our ledge of rocks." And putting the young man to sleep, they sailed off again towards the west. When they reached the rocks, they took the young man out of the canoe and put him where, if he wakened and moved, he would fall off, or if he didn't move, he would starve to death. Then they sailed away. Two Feathers knew that his nephew was in great danger, for the wampum came down as before. He threw ashes over his head and face and began to mourn. When the young man woke up, he stretched his arms and found that he couldn't reach anything. He looked and couldn't see anything. He heard a noise and thought that some animal was coming to devour him. But after listening a while, he knew that there were men near him, for he heard a groan. Then he thought, those women bring men here for some terrible creature to eat. After a while, he heard a noise that sounded like crunching, and he knew someone had been killed. At last the creature came to him. It was an enormous head. It took a bite from one of his legs and flew away over the ledge of rocks. Mink spat on his hands, rubbed his leg with saliva, and it was well again. Just at daylight, Mink heard a man's voice in the distance. It came nearer and nearer, and soon he heard the words, "This is what we who dwell among the rocks eat." Looking up, he saw a man on the cliff above him. The man held up a roasted squash and began to blow the ashes off from it. He took a bite, smacked his lips to torment Mink, who was hungry. Then he swept down between the rocks and showed the squash to men who were starving. Mink lay on the rocks all day, thinking what to do. He got his bow ready, and when he heard a great noise and saw the terrible head coming, he let an arrow fly. It went straight through the head, and the head fell between the rocks. When the squash man came again, and looking down said, "This is what we who dwell among the rocks eat." Mink sent another arrow, and the squash man fell down between the rocks. Mink thought, "I have killed the head and the squash man. Now I must get off from this rock." He leaned over the cliff, ran his fingers down his throat, and trying very hard, vomited a little. Then he began to sing, "Let a great hemlock tree grow from that. Let a great hemlock tree grow from that. As he sang, a tree began to grow, and it grew till its boughs were far above the cliff. Then Mink called, "My friends, I have found a way down. Creep along carefully. If you find a skeleton, push it off." Several men crawled along. Mink made them go one at a time down the tree. Last of all, he went himself. As he went down, the tree decreased. When he reached the ground, it disappeared. He said to the men, "Those of you who know which way you came can go home. For those who do not know may go home with me." All this time, Two Feathers had been mourning. When Mink was near the cabin, a voice at the door said, "I have come home, Uncle." Two Feathers looked at the wampum belt. It had gone up. He was happy. He called, "Wait a minute, my nephew, till I wash off the ashes." When he opened the door, there stood a rabbit. It made great leaps and in an instant was out of reach. The old man was disappointed. He scolded the rabbit and shut the door. Soon he heard steps again, and a voice called out, "I have come, Uncle." That must be my nephew, thought Two Feathers, and he opened the door. It was a fox. "Wretched animal," said the old man, "I will kill you if you torment me when I have mourned so long for my nephew." He got a strap and a corn pounder and then made a hole in the door just large enough for a man's hand. When an animal came again, he was going to kill it. Mink came, and when he called out, the old man said, "Now I will catch you." It was so quiet inside that the young man wondered what his uncle was doing, and he called a second time, "I have come, Uncle." "If you have, put your hand through the hole in the door." Mink put his hand through. Two Feathers caught hold of it and strapped it to the door, then opened the door. When he saw his nephew, he was overjoyed. Mink told the old man everything that had happened and said, "I will get meat and wood for you. Then I will go for my wife." The men who had come with Mink gathered the wood and took care of the game he killed. When his uncle was well supplied, Mink went for his wife and brought her home. The end. An interesting way to end this story, but the end.
The end. Yep. That was kind of, I don't know, he brought her home.
Well, he didn't. There wasn't any head chopping.
Yeah, that was kind of a good thing.
That was an interesting one. But there was two sisters, and they did take a canoe and fly it away. There wasn't a lake, though, you know.
A big head chopped or ate his leg. Took a bite out of his leg.
Then he spat on it and rubbed it with his hands, and it was all better.
Oh, yeah. What do we got for a card tonight?
It's been a busy night, but I'm going to try to make it. I'm going to try to make it as short as possible without being too abrupt.
All right.
There are 4 cards that just had to be pulled. Actually, three of them more important, but they're all three of them upside down. So um, number 23 is the opossum.
Oh, the possum. Cute little possum. You know, they only live a few years.
Yeah, I heard that. I've got a couple around here, and Duggar will chase them and ring them around, and they'll lay still, and he'll poke them with his nose and everything. And then he'll walk away, and sure enough, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, the possum will be gone.
Yeah, and they're tough. I tell you, I've caught possums back in the day, and oh man, you'd think they're dead. They were really looking dead, and you'd have it. Oh, my buddy had a one of those things where you could put it around their neck,
Yeah.
and you pull the rope and on a stick, and
Right.
And I'm like, it's dead, man. You've had it, and he's no, don't let it go. That thing will come after you and bite you. No, it's dead, man. It's been laying there for 2 hours. Yeah, sure enough, take the stick off. It's alive.
Yep.
Like, holy crap.
Opossum is diversion. Opossum roll over, are you really dead? Or just plain possum? Was it something that I said? So possum medicine uses a great deal of strategy. Strategy. Yeah, that's what I said. If all else fails, possum plays dead. It has the ability to fight with its claws and teeth, and it will, by golly, let me tell you. But it rarely uses this form of protection. And instead, the supreme strategy of diversion is constantly employed when things get a little too hard to handle. If possum is turned up in your cards, you're being asked to use strategy in some present situation or possibly something coming up. Rely upon your instincts for the best way out of a tight corner. If you have to pretend to be apathetic or unafraid, do it. Oftentimes, if you refuse to struggle or show that harmful words bother you, your taunter will see no further fun in the game. But sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never harm me. And that's really true.
Yep.
But possum was upside down. Possum may be warning you against getting caught in the high drama of your life's present scenario, if this fits. Close your eyes and dramatize may keep you from seeing the truth of your situation. You may buy into melodrama in yourself or others. And that's true. There's a lot of stuff going on these days that you can just get caught up in it, and it gets all so melodramatic, and we're all going to die. And yes, don't do that. If this concept does not apply to your situation, take a look at the possibility that you may have recently been giving excuses for why you don't want to do something instead of going ahead and telling the truth. In having to defend yourself with excuses, you may have lost the point. You don't have to defend your right to be. The exercise is in learning to politely say that something would not be appropriate for you at this time. Now, the next other one upside down, number 27, is dragonfly. Now, we all love dragonfly. Dragonfly is the illusion. Dragonfly breaks the illusions, brings visions of power. No need to prove it, because now is the hour. Know it, believe it, Great Spirit intercedes, feeding you and blessing you and fulfilling all your needs. Dragonfly medicine is of the dream time and the illusionary facade we accept as physical reality. The iridescence of dragonfly wings reminds us of colors not found in everyday experiences. Dragonfly's shifting of color and energy, form, and movement explodes into the mind of the observer. Some legends say that Dragonfly was once dragon, and that dragon had scales like dragonfly's wings. Dragon was full of wisdom and flew through the night, bringing light with its fiery breath. The breath of dragon brought forth the art of magic and the illusion of changing form. Then dragon got caught in its own facade. Coyote tricked dragon into changing form, and the shape of its new body became like dragonflies. In accepting the challenge to prove its power and magical prowess, dragon lost its power. So now all of these were upside down. So contrary, are you trying to prove to yourself or someone else that you have power? Are you caught in an illusion that weakens your true feelings or minimizes your own abilities? If so, you may have contracted dragonfly dive bombing. Is this the final crash and burn for some pipe dream that had no real purpose? Notice if it is ebbing and find the point in time when you were deluded into believing that you would be happier if you changed because someone else wanted you to. Misery is a prime clue that you lost your will and personal validity when you bought into someone else's idea of who or what you should be. Follow Dragonfly to the place inside your body where magic is still alive and drink deeply of its power. The strength belongs to you. Now, the third card is number 11, Moose.
Oh, moose.
And we almost done. Moose is self-esteem. So looking at the three cards with self-esteem and illusion and, possum with diversion, it seems that, there are times when you may have been you've been too much of a diversion and caught up in an illusion with Dragonfly. And Moose is talking about self-esteem. So just think about these three cards right now for a second. So self-esteem. Moose, help me honor the gifts that I can give and recognize my worthiness as long as I live. So Moose is found in the north of the medicine wheel, as is the buffalo. North represents the place of wisdom. Self-esteem is the medicine of Moose because it represents the power of recognizing that wisdom, and that wisdom has been used in a situation, and that recognition or a pat on the back is deserved. Moose, the wisdom woven throughout this scenario is that creation constantly brings forth new ideas and new creation. Moose is telling us that joy should be shouted with pride. Moose medicine people have the ability to know when to use the gentleness of deer and when to activate the stampede of buffalo. They understand the balance between giving orders to get things done and having the willingness to do things themselves. Moose upside down is that It may be that you're being reminded that ego can ruin your sense of accomplishment. So there's Possum, talking about a diversion, Dragonfly with the illusion. Are you fooling yourself with something? And here's the contrary Moose upside down saying, maybe that ego can ruin your sense of accomplishment. Don't let yourself get ahead of you. Remember that others have the same potential that you have, and do not become careless in your appreciation of their gifts. Reverse Moose implies that in tooting your own horn, you have failed to be interested in others, and have therefore forgotten that everyone teaches everyone else in some way. Contrary Moose medicine may be asking you to grow quietly for a while. Be silent, to calm your spirit and allow the strength and wisdom of silence to enter your heart. So Possum's telling you to, be divergent, dragonfly. Don't be fooled by the illusion, and draw upon your inner strength. So thank you, my friends, for listening to the story. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you for listening. It didn't take me too long to read those cards, did it?
You did real good. Real good.
Then I think it got a message across. And if those cards applied to you, okie dokie. But they always seem to give a decent message. So, And as y'all know, I know we're fixing to wrap up here. We're 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And, that we continue to keep helping each other. And one thing that seems to be going around these days, and it's not a bad thing, is something that you can say to your friends and neighbors. Peace be to you, my brothers and sisters. Because there's a lot of folks that, regardless of religion, are talking about let's bring peace to one another. And I think tonight, Buffalo Bill Cody showed that he brought peace amongst the Indians, and that they all went out together and and worked as brothers and sisters, to put on shows for people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it's 100 years later, we could use his example. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, we could use his example. Look, everybody, I just, I don't mean this rudely, but I just, got a bunch of Arabs over here and we're going to do something together, What? Yeah, well, didn't we just have a war with them? Yeah, but, it's time to, get over it and move on. What a diplomat he was at the same time. So, if anything, the wonderful report about, Buffalo Bill and Wild Bill Hickok, but Buffalo Bill is to show that, one day you can be scalping somebody and the next day you can be hiring them to be in a Wild West show with you.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it just means, the thing is like Sitting Bull, for instance, was in the Wild West show, right? And him and Buffalo Bill got to be good friends. When, maybe a number of years before that, they might have been shooting at each other.
Yeah, quite possibly were.
And, and when, there's a big story behind how Buffalo Bill got a message, and he went out there to the Pine Ridge to talk to Buffalo or the Sitting Bull because something bad was going to happen. And somehow they didn't let him talk to him. They got him all drunk and everything, and told him that the Sitting Bull has left the res, and so he was like, oh, okay, and he left, and he never got to see his friend again. So how weird's that?
Well, and then they took Sitting Bull and put him in prison in Florida.
No, that was Geronimo. No, Sitting Bull they killed. They killed Sitting Bull. That's what he went out there for. Cody was told to go out there, and he went out there and he brought 2 wagon loads of peace offerings for the Indians. When he got out there, the officers and whatever, kind of detained him and said, oh, he's not around, blah, blah, blah. And then they got him all drunk and wanted him to, or there was a big story. I'm going to have to read into it more. But anyway, and then finally they told him, oh, he's not here anymore. He left. And then a few days later, they killed him. So there was a bigger plan there, and I got to get all the details to that. But that is quite the thing. He knew something was going on, and he was going there to ask him to come back to the show to get him out of that area. Yeah. But they wouldn't let him see him. So there you go. Anyway, well, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Jeannie, thank you. Good night. Chloe, thank you. F. Kitty, Seeker of Truth 2. Everybody was here. Lucky Stone, Elderberry. I don't know who else is left watching, but thank you all for being Pod Joe. Oh, man, we had a great bunch of people here. Richard, yes. Thank you, everybody who joined in, participated, or just plain listen. Because are you going to have a show tonight?
Yeah, for a bit.
All right. I am going to go to bed. I got to go to work tomorrow. So there you go. Another great show. Okay. Well, with
one of our longest.
Yeah, one of our longest. Remember, we had one that was like 3 hours once. But anyway, needless to say, it was great. I think I might do a show on Buffalo Bill. I got so much information. I'm going to put that out there one of these days. But anyhow, right now, we're going to wrap it up. And remember, go out and do something nice for your neighbor. And we'll just be the frequency we want to receive, don't we? We're always that. Be the frequency you want to receive. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.